and understanding of the sanctity of freedom. A passion put into words and action by our first great warrior, Harlan Carter.
The very essence of all of this is that you deprive a man of a liberty because he might abuse it. And I respectfully submit to you that if we can ever embark upon the principle that because a liberty might be abused, the government can restrict it, restrain it, or abolish it, ladies and gentlemen, you have lost everything.
I hold here in my hands the traditional American flintlock rifle. This is a specimen of those that hark back to those men, those brave men who wrote our Constitution and who later prescribed a Bill of Rights, the second of which we honor and we think of almost every day.
The NRA believes that America's laws were made to be obeyed and that our constitutional liberties are just as important today as 200 years ago.
The greatest thing that the National Rifle Association does is remind Americans of their heritage.
You know, I've always felt a special bond with the members of your group.
I'm proud to display the NRA seal on my cars and trucks, and so are my children.
Thank the Lord that I belong to this great organization.
The NRA has proudly stood in the forefront of America's tradition of equal rights, civil liberties, and freedom long before other organizations took up that noble cause.
We are the one thing that stands between free Americans and the loss of their rights.
If Americans believed in political correctness, we'd still be King George's boys, subject to the British crown.
If liberals read the rest of the Constitution the way they read the Second Amendment, then gun ownership in America would be mandatory, every man, woman, and child.
We protect all of the God-given rights guaranteed in the Constitution, even for those citizens who would deny them to us.
We are there, rain or shine, every day.
When ordinary citizens saw for themselves the ferocity of modern-day terrorism, they lined up 3 and 4 deep at gun stores counters to reach for America's original homeland security, the Second Amendment.
The Second Amendment is called America's first freedom because it is the right we turn to when all else fails.
When these Bush administration officials affirmed that the Second Amendment protects an individual right, the enemies of freedom were outraged because they fear the Second Amendment for what it really is, a shield against oppression.
The right of Americans to live without fear. That is the heart of the Second Amendment.
Over the last 25 years, I've watched proud, freedom-loving Americans like you get up, get out, go to work to preserve America's freedoms. You are the sons and daughters of liberty.
Mr. Heston and the other founding fathers were pretty doggone smart when they wrote those words.
The Constitution says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
With a fraction of the wealth and influence of those who oppose and vilify us, the NRA still prevails because we stand for the highest ideals humankind has ever sought to preserve.
America is no longer an experiment, it is an accomplishment. Freedom works. You inherited it, and you dare not neglect it.
Blaming guns for horrors such as Columbine is no different than blaming the chains for slavery.
Somehow the media and pundits conveniently overlook that freedom is not partisan. She does not label herself with an R or a D. She welcomes all who would embrace and defend her.
The sound of our guns is the sound of freedom. That exists now as a guiding principle of our country.
The quality of my freedom, my ancestors bought with their blood, is not mine to squander.
If you want to feel the warm breath of freedom on your neck, if you want to touch the pulse of liberty that beat in our founding fathers, you can do so through the majesty of the Second Amendment of the Bill of Rights.
I promise you, we will win back our rightful place in the mainstream of American political debate. Mainstream doesn't mean giving up anything, it means getting back everything.
When ordinary hands can possess such an extraordinary instrument, that symbolizes the full measure of human dignity and liberty.
The Second Amendment is America's first freedom among the entire of that magnificent Bill of Rights. It is the first among equals.
History recognizes you as a keeper of freedom's flame. You are what a 21st century patriot looks like.
Today, we stand on the shoulders of giants who went before us. Equal in scope to the women's suffrage and civil rights movements of the 20th century, the gun rights revolution has accomplished no less than the restoration of Second Amendment freedoms. Take pride in the deeds and dedication of this great association. Ours is a better world for it.
We've beat hundreds of bad bills on our watch, from gun licensing to
Brady bills, waiting periods,
taxes, surtaxes, and increased license fees.
Ammunition bans.
We beat back gun bans,
Phony ballistic fingerprinting.
arsenal licenses, warrantless searches.
We burned them on their one gun a month scheme.
Ridiculous semi-automatic bills.
The Great Brady Bill.
Plastic guns. Beat back a conspiracy to limit ammunition clips.
And on a national waiting period.
The NRA will move ahead to break the back of violent crime in America.
Prosecute him. That's NRA's Project Exile.
We are the people who helped clean out Congress in 1994
and elected the most pro-Second Amendment Congress in this half of the century.
Year after year, opinion polls consistently show NRA is rated favorably by a majority of Americans.
We gave America crime strike and truth in sentencing and victims' rights and right to carry and a little idea that's gotten great big results called 3 strikes and you're out.
To the database registration schemes we defeated in 20 states last year.
It's the law of the land.
It's a fight for freedom, and that's what free hunter means.
38 states now respect the right to carry.
All but 6 states have range protection on the books.
We didn't let them ban your gun shows.
Or ban your detachable magazines. More state legislatures are moving to shut down the outrageous lawsuits that have been launched by big city mayors to bankrupt the firearms industry.
The United States House of Representatives passed legislation to stop these gutless lawsuits against honest gun makers.
The Department of State told the global gun ban crowd at the United Nations in no uncertain terms that our Second Amendment rights were off limits.
Millions of gun owners, with NRA taking the lead, gave Al Gore a good old political field dressing.
Gun owners voted overwhelmingly for President Bush.
The Second Amendment protects an individual right to keep and bear arms, signed by John Ashcroft, Attorney General of the United States.
They've called us, the NRA, just about everything. They've called us uncompromising. They've called us tough. They've called us hard line. Well, we have a message to give to the media today. For once, they got it right.
Today, the NRA is in the news business with 3 national magazines, 4 websites, including our own streaming video, webcasting news site, a weekly radio show, and a TV news magazine that is reaching 92% of American households.
And what you've accomplished speaks for itself.
From my cold, dead hands. From my cold, dead hands.